Everyone wanted him dead, except the alien woman who shielded him with her body asterisk. Shield of Mercy Commander Tarek Valoron's lungs burned as he stumbled through the mist-shrouded ruins of what had once been a temple on Nithara. 6 days on the run since his scout ship crashed. 6 days of evading Union patrols with nothing but battlefield rations and recycled water. The wound in his side had stopped bleeding, but the makeshift bandage was filthy, and fever had set in hours ago. The galaxy had turned against humanity 3 years prior, after Earth's Prime Minister betrayed the Galactic Union's trust during peace negotiations. Now, humans were hunted across the Starshot, on sight as enemies of galactic peace. Tarek collapsed against a fallen column, its surface etched with symbols he couldn't decipher. His fingers traced the alien script as consciousness. Wavered. Strange how beautiful it was, even as it blurred before his eyes. The irony wasn't lost on him. A decorated commander of Earth's elite Phantom Corps, dying alone on a hostile world, with no one to mark his passing. The sound came suddenly, the distinctive hum of Union particle rifles powering up. Tarek didn't bother reaching for his sidearm. It had been empty for days. Human detected. Prepare for termination. The mechanical translation echoed through the ruins. Tarek looked up to see 5 Union soldiers in their distinctive crimson armor emerging. From the mist, weapons trained on him. At their center stood a figure whose presence commanded immediate attention, taller than the others, with ornate silver markings on deep blue armor that designated high rank. General Qaeda Myrith of the Azarian Dominion. Even in his delirious state, Tarek recognized her from intelligence briefings. The Azarians were among humanity's fiercest opponents in the war, and she was their most decorated field commander. Tarek straightened as best he could. If death had come, he would face it standing. "Commander Tarek Valoron," she said, her translator, rendering her musical language into flat standard. "Your reputation precedes you. Just get it over with," Tarek rasped. What happened next defied all logic. In one fluid motion, General Myrith stepped between Tarek and her squad, her own weapon. Raised not at him, but at her soldiers. "Lower your weapons," she commanded. The soldiers hesitated, confusion evident even through their faceplates. "General, our orders. I invoke the Shral Viridian," she declared, her voice carrying a weight that made the soldiers flinch back. "This human is under my protection by ancient right." The squad leader's weapon wavered. "The protection right? But General, he's human. And I am Qaeda Myrith, 7th Sentinel of the Azarian High Command. Do you question my authority to invoke our most sacred law?" One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons, though their postures radiated disbelief. "Return to base," she ordered. "Report that the human escaped. I will pursue alone." After a tense moment, the squad retreated, disappearing into the mist. Only when they were gone did Qaeda turn to face Tarek, her crystalline eyes, 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern, studying him intently. "Why?" Tarek managed, fighting to remain conscious. Qaeda knelt beside him, removing her helmet to reveal features both alien and striking her skin, a pale lavender, intricate markings flowing across her temples. 3 years ago, during the Battle of Proxima Centauri, she said quietly, a human commander spared a young Azarian navigator. When his ship was disabled, instead of destroying the vessel, he provided emergency coordinates to Union rescue ships before vanishing. Recognition dawned in Tarek's feverish mind. "That was my brother," she confirmed. "Tarek Myrith. You did not know who he was, but I never forgot your face from the ship's records." She examined his wound with clinical precision. "You need medical attention. Can you walk?" "Not far," Tarek admitted. "Then I will carry you," she said simply, as if the notion of bearing an enemy commander through hostile territory was the most natural thing in the universe. "The Union has taken Your people's freedom, but they will not take your life. Not while I stand. As consciousness finally slipped away, Tarek's last thought was of how strange fate could be, that his salvation would come in the form of an enemy, whose brother he'd once spared on nothing more than a moment's compassion. Asterisk escape. Through shadows, Tarek awoke to the gentle hiss of a medical injector against his neck. His vision cleared to reveal a cramped space, the interior of what appeared to be an abandoned mining shelter carved into rock. Qaida Myrith sat beside him, her armor partially removed, revealing a form-fitting undersuit that accentuated her athletic build. The fever has broken, she observed, setting aside the injector. Union nanomeds are effective on human physiology, though not optimal. Tarek attempted to sit up, wincing at the pain in his side. How long was I unconscious? 26 hours, Qaida replied. We are currently 14 kilometers from the temple ruins in the Variz mountain range. Union patrols have been searching the southern valleys. You carried me all this way? Tarek asked, incredulous. Azarians possess approximately twice the strength of humans, she stated matter-of-factly, though I admit you are heavier than anticipated. Despite everything, Tarek found himself laughing, then immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his side. The Shural Viridian, he said when he could speak again. What exactly did you invoke back there? Qaida's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Tarek would later learn indicated contemplation. It is an ancient protection rite dating back to before our species joined the Galactic Union. Once invoked, the protected individual becomes the invoker's sacred responsibility. To harm you would be to harm me. Even the Union respects this tradition. But you've made yourself a fugitive, Tarek pointed out. I am aware of the consequences, she replied. I have served the Dominion faithfully for 22 cycles. My record grants me certain ... considerations. You're banking on leniency? I am banking on time, she corrected. There is a neutral trading post 3 days' journey from here. From there, you could secure passage to the free territories. Tarek studied her, trying to reconcile this alien woman with everything he'd been taught about the ruthless Azarian military. Why risk so much for a debt you don't actually owe? I didn't spare your brother expecting anything in return. That, Qaida said softly, is precisely why the debt exists. Their conversation was interrupted by the distant whine of Union scout ships. Qaida quickly donned her armor, retrieving a compact pulse rifle from a hidden compartment in the wall. Can you walk? She asked, offering him a hand. Tarek nodded, accepting her assistance. Her touch was warmer than he expected, her skin textured like fine suede. Lead the way, General. Qaida, she corrected. Titles seem rather pointless under the circumstances. They emerged from the shelter into a twilight landscape of towering stone spires and fossilized tree formations. Nethra's twin moons cast overlapping shadows across the terrain, creating natural pathways of darkness they could follow unseen. Stay close, Qaida instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. Union scanners have difficulty penetrating the mineral deposits in these formations. They moved in silence for hours, Tarek following Qaida's lead as she navigated the treacherous terrain with the confidence of one born to it. When his strength began to falter, she wordlessly offered her shoulder for support, never slowing their pace. During a brief rest, Tarek asked the question that had been gnawing at him. Your brother Tarek, is he well? Qaida's expression softened. Momentarily. He left military service after Proxima Centauri. Now he works as a xenobiologist on our homeworld, studying interspecies communication. Your mercy gave him that opportunity. I'm glad, Tarek said sincerely. I've never understood this war. The actions of a few politicians shouldn't condemn entire species. Yet here we are, Qaida replied, gazing up at the stars. fighting and dying over borders, and exist only on star charts. Were you at the Callisto engagement? Tarek asked. I commanded the 7th Fleet, she confirmed. Then you saved lives too. You could have bombarded the colony, but you allowed evacuation shuttles to depart before your assault. Kaida looked at him with surprise. You know of this? I was coordinating the evacuation, Tarek admitted. 3,000 civilians escaped because of your restraint. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that perhaps they were not so different after all. Their eyes held for a moment before Kaida looked away, rising to her feet. We should continue, she said, her voice slightly less formal than before. There's a river canyon ahead where we can rest more safely. As they resumed their journey, Tarek noticed that Kaida no longer walked 2 steps ahead, but beside him, a subtle shift that somehow felt significant in the vastness of their shared exile. Whispers among stars. The abandoned outpost had once been a Union listening post, built into the face of a cliff, overlooking a vast crystalline forest. Its automated systems still functioned, providing power and clean water luxuries Tarek hadn't experienced since his ship crashed. We can remain here for 48 hours, Kaida explained, securing the perimeter. The facility's dampening field will mask our presence, but we shouldn't test its limits. 5 days had passed since their escape from the temple ruins. 5 days of careful movement through hostile territory, of shared rations and hushed conversations beneath alien skies. Somewhere along the way, wariness had given way to a tentative trust. Tarek watched as Kaida methodically checked her armor for damage, her movements precise and economical. Do you ever remove it completely? He asked. Kaida paused, giving him a look he couldn't quite interpret. Would you feel safer if I did? Actually, I'd feel safer knowing you had it on, Tarek clarified with a smile. But it can't be comfortable to wear constantly. After a moment's consideration, Kaida began disengaging the armor's connection points. Piece by piece, the formidable exterior fell away, revealing the person beneath still alien, but suddenly more vulnerable. Without the armor, her frame was slender yet strong, her movements more fluid. The markings he'd glimpsed on her face continued down her neck and along her arms in intricate patterns that seemed to shift with the light. Better? She asked, something almost like self-consciousness in her tone. Thank you, Tarek said simply, understanding this was a gesture of trust. They made use of the outpost's facilities, taking turns to wash away days of grime and tending to their respective injuries. When Kaida returned from her ablutions, she wore a simple gray undersuit that was standard issue beneath Union armor. Her hair, a crest of delicate, feather-like filaments, was now visible, cascading down her back in shades of indigo and violet. Your wound needs redressing, she observed, nodding toward Tarek's side. He lifted his shirt to reveal the healing gash. Kaida knelt beside him, her hands gentle as she applied fresh nanomed sealant. The war has taken much from both our peoples, she said quietly as she worked. My mother was a diplomat before the conflict. She believed in the possibility of human-Azarian cooperation. What happened to her? Tarek asked. She was on Earth when the exclusion order was issued. We never heard from her again. Tarek felt a weight settle in his chest. I'm sorry, Kaida, as am I for your losses, she replied. Her fingers lingered on his skin a moment longer than necessary before she withdrew them. You should rest. I'll take first watch. You've been taking first watch every night, Tarek pointed out. You need rest too. Azarians require less sleep than humans. Even Azarians have limits, he countered, gently catching her wrist as she stood to leave. The contact sent an unexpected current between them, and for a heartbeat, neither moved. Kaida's 4 eyes studied him, seeming to look beyond his face to something deeper. Very well, she conceded. 2 hours. Then I will relieve you. As she settled onto one of the outpost's narrow bunks, Tarek noticed how she positioned herself, with her back to the wall as a soldier might, but facing toward him, as if even in sleep she intended to keep her promise of protection. The hours of his watch passed quietly. Outside, Nethra's crystal forest caught the moonlight, refracting it into countless luminous patterns across the outpost walls. The effect was mesmerizing, almost magical, and entirely at odds with the brutal war that had brought them to this moment. When the time came to wake Qaida, Tarek found himself hesitating beside her bunk. In sleep, the stern general had vanished, replaced by someone whose face showed glimpses of gentleness. He was about to withdraw when her eyes opened, all four focusing on him with immediate clarity. "Is something wrong?" she asked, instantly alert. "No," Tarek assured her. "Just the light on your face. It reminded me of something." "What?" "There's an old Earth expression. Seeing someone in a new light. I think I understand it better now." Qaida sat up slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "Humans have curious idioms." "We're a curious species," he replied with a small smile. "Yes," she agreed, rising to her feet. They stood closer than necessary, neither stepping away. "You certainly are." The moment stretched between them, filled with things unsaid. Then Qaida reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek with a touch so light it might have been imagined. "Rest now, Tarek," she said softly. "Tomorrow's journey will be arduous." As he settled into the warmth she had left behind, Tarek realized that somewhere amid the chaos of their flight, something fundamental had changed. The alien woman who had once been his enemy now occupied a place in his thoughts that both confused and comforted him, a contradiction as vast as the stars that separated their worlds, yet as intimate as the lingering sensation of her touch against his skin. Asterisk hearts across galaxies. The trading outpost of Nixvorn clung to the edge of a massive canyon, its structures a chaotic blend of prefabricated Union modules and indigenous architecture. Known for its policy of neutrality, it attracted traders, mercenaries, and fugitives from across the sector, a perfect place to disappear. Qaida had traded her distinctive armor for civilian clothing, loose-fitting garments in muted blues that nonetheless failed to diminish her commanding presence. Tarek wore a hooded cloak that concealed his human features, keeping close to Qaida as they navigated the crowded marketplace. "The transport leaves at dawn," Qaida informed him, her voice low. "I've secured passage for you to the Vega Freelands. You'll be beyond Union jurisdiction there." Tarek caught her wording immediately. "For me? What about you?" "I must return and face the consequences of my actions," she replied, her expression unreadable. "The protection right grants clemency to the protected, not the protector." "That's not acceptable," Tarek said firmly, pulling her into a quieter alleyway. "I won't leave you to face a tribunal alone." Qaida's four eyes widened slightly at his vehemence. "You misunderstand. I don't seek martyrdom, Tarek. I have allies within the Dominion who question the war. My public trial could become a platform for dissent. Or it could be a closed execution," he countered. "You're too valuable as a symbol to risk either outcome." A tense silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of marketplace haggling. Finally, Qaida spoke, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. "What would you have us do? Spend our lives running? There is no place in this galaxy where a human and a Nazarian could simply exist together." The words hung in the air, acknowledging what had remained unspoken during their journey, the growing connection between them that defied every boundary of species and allegiance. "Maybe there should be," Tarek said quietly, reaching for her hand. Her fingers intertwined with his, the sensation both alien and inexplicably right. "Maybe that's worth fighting for." They found sanctuary in a small rented room above an antiquities shop, its proprietor unconcerned with their identities, so long as their credits were good. The space was simple: a bed, a table, a window overlooking the distant moons. But after weeks of running, it felt like luxury dot as night fell. They sat together on the narrow balcony, sharing a bottle of Nixverin ferment potent enough for both human and Azarian physiology. "Tell me about Earth," Kaida requested. "Not the strategic briefings. Tell me what you miss." Tarek smiled, memories washing over him. Thunderstorms. The way rain smells when it hits dry ground. Autumn in the northern forests when the leaves change color. "We have similar forests on Azar," Kaida remarked, "though our leaves shift from blue to silver with the seasons." "I'd like to see that someday," Tarek said. Kaida turned to him, her expression vulnerable in a way he'd never witnessed before. "Would you? Truly?" "Yes," he answered without hesitation. "I want to know your world, Kaida, just as I want you to know mine." Her hand rose to touch his face, tracing the contours that were so different from her own. "In another life, perhaps. Why not this one?" The question hung between them for a heartbeat before Tarek leaned forward, closing the distance. Their lips met a gesture universal enough to transcend their differences. Kaida's initial surprise melted into response, her arms encircling him. As the kiss deepened, when they finally parted, her eyes shimmered with emotion. "This changes nothing," she whispered, though her actions belied her words as she drew him closer. "The galaxy remains as it is." "Then we change the galaxy," Tarek replied against her skin, his hands discovering the unique textures and contours of her body as clothing fell away. Beneath urgent touches, their union was a revelation differences. In physiology creating new patterns of pleasure as they explored one another with increasing boldness. What began as tentative soon transformed into passionate abandon, their bodies finding harmony despite having evolved under different stars. Afterward, they lay entwined, the barriers between human and alien momentarily transcended. Kaida's head rested against Tarek's chest, her feathered hair spread across his skin like liquid midnight. "My people have a belief," she murmured, tracing patterns on his chest, "that souls find each other across multiple lifetimes. Perhaps in another existence. We met under kinder circumstances." "I prefer this lifetime," Tarek replied, kissing her forehead, "imperfect as it is." Their peaceful interlude was shattered by the sudden wail of security alarms throughout the outpost. Kaida was on her feet instantly, moving to the window with predatory grace. "Union dropships," she reported, her voice reverting to military precision. "At least 3. Someone recognized us." They dressed quickly, gathering their few possessions. Tarek checked the charge on the blaster Kaida had procured for him days earlier. "The transport," he suggested. "If we can reach it, they'll have." "The spaceport surrounded," Kaida countered, strapping a vibroblade to her thigh. "We need another way out." A sharp knock at their door froze them both. Kaida positioned herself before Tarek, weapon raised, but the voice that called through was unexpected. "General Myrith? Commander Valoran? I represent interested parties who can offer extraction, but we must move now." Kaida and Tarek exchanged glances. A trap? Perhaps. But with Union forces closing in, options were limited. Sometimes faith is all we have, Tarek said quietly. Kaida nodded, her free hand finding his for a brief, tight squeeze. "Then let us have faith together," she replied, moving toward the door, and whatever fate awaited them beyond. Asterisk. Beyond the last horizon, the extraction team moved with the precision of veteran operatives, a mixed crew of species that included 2. Tarek's shock, both humans and Azarians working in seamless coordination. Their leader, a scarred Azarian male who introduced himself only as Yavik, guided them through maintenance tunnels beneath Nixvorin. "The Concordance," he explained as they hurried toward a concealed hangar. "We've been watching you both since the temple incident." "The Concordance?" Kaida questioned, recognition flickering in her eyes. I thought it was a myth propaganda to discredit peace advocates. Yavik's laugh was harsh. The Union and Dominion find it convenient to dismiss us. Makes our work easier. The ship waiting for them was sleek and unmarked, its design unlike any military vessel Tarek had encountered. Inside, the crew, 15 members, representing 7 species, operated with the familiarity of those who had served together for years. As they broke atmosphere, evading Union patrols through a series of maneuvers that spoke of intimate knowledge. Of security protocols, Yavik brought them to the ship's briefing room. "You've become symbols," he informed them, activating a holographic display that showed news broadcasts from across the galaxy. Images of Qaeda and Tarek appeared, security footage from Nix Foreign, grainy visuals from Nithara. The Azarian general who defied the Union to protect a human. The story has spread despite censorship efforts. To what end? Qaeda asked warily. A human woman stepped forward, Commander Elise Novak, formerly of Earth Fleet Intelligence. Yavik introduced her. "To the end of this war?" she answered. "Public opinion is shifting. Your story has resonated across species lines. It humanizes, forgive the expression, both sides of the conflict." "You want to use us as propaganda," Tarek concluded. "We want you to tell your truth," Novak corrected. "Both of you chose compassion over hatred, connection over division. That choice matters." Qaida's hand found Tarek's beneath the table, their fingers intertwining in what had become a familiar gesture of solidarity. "And if we refuse?" she asked. "Then we drop you at the nearest free port with new identities," Yavik said simply. "We don't coerce. That's what separates us from those we oppose." 3 days later, aboard the Concordance vessel, now in deep space, Tarek stood before a communication array that would broadcast his and Qaida's message to receiving stations throughout the galaxy. Qaida joined him, dressed not in military attire, but in clothing that represented a blend of both their cultures. "Are you certain about this?" he asked her quietly. "There's no going back. I made my choice in that Tenwell," she replied, taking his hand openly before the assembled crew. "Everything since has only confirmed its rightness." The broadcast began, their faces transmitted to countless worlds as they told their story. Not as propaganda, but as truth. How enemies became allies, then friends, then something deeper. How artificial divisions dissolved when faced with authentic connection. How love, against all odds, flourished in the shadow of war. They spoke of Qaida's brother, saved by an act of mercy. Of Tarek's recognition of Qaida's honor at Callisto. Of their journey across Nethara, and the discovery that beneath different exteriors beat hearts capable of the same courage, sacrifice, and devotion. "We stand before you not as human and Azarian," Tarek concluded, "but as two beings who refuse to be defined by the hatred others would impose upon us. If we can bridge this divide," Qaida added, "then perhaps our leaders can find the courage to do the same." In the days that followed, their message spread despite Union attempts to suppress it. Reports reached the Concordance of demonstrations. On multiple world citizens demanding negotiations, soldiers questioning orders, politicians facing mounting pressure to justify a war increasingly viewed as unnecessary. Yavik found them one evening on the ship's observation deck, gazing at the stars. "The Union has issued a statement," he informed them. "For the first time in 3 years, they've agreed to peace talks with human representatives. It's a small step, but significant." After he departed, Tarek turned to Qaida, still scarcely believing. How far they had come from that moment in the ruins. "What now?" he asked. "For us?" Qaida's 4 eyes gleamed with emotion as she drew in close. "Now we continue what we started, building something new. Something that belongs to neither your world nor mine, but to both." "And if peace fails?" Tarek questioned, ever the pragmatist. "Then we keep trying," she answered simply. As long as it takes. Some things are worth the fight. Their silhouettes merged against the backdrop of countless stars as their lips met. Two beings from worlds light years apart who had found in each other something rare and precious. A love that transcended boundaries of species and allegiance. A connection forged in the crucible of conflict, but tempered by choice. Asterisk beyond the viewport, the galaxy continued its eternal dance, stars being born and dying. Planets spinning through the void, species rising and falling. But in this moment, on this ship, something truly revolutionary had taken root. The simple, radical notion that differences need not divide, that enemies could become lovers, that mercy could triumph over hatred. And perhaps in time, that notion might spread across the stars, changing hearts and minds, as Tarek and Kaidas had been changed one connection at a time, until the very concept of other dissolved into the recognition of shared existence under the same vast, infinite sky. As the Concordance vessel journeyed onward through the darkness between stars, Tarek and Kaidas stood together at its helm, their paths now irrevocably intertwined pioneers, mapping the unexplored territory of a future neither could have imagined alone, but both now faced with hope, determination, and the unshakable certainty that whatever challenges awaited, they would meet them as one.